Welcome to Classic Banjo Lessons. I'm Aaron Jonah Lewis, and today we're going to play through the exercises in preparation to play Pajama Dance, and perhaps we'll get to Pajama Dance as well, or as some might say, Pajama Dance. So, we learn a little bit of theory with minor scales. What makes a minor scale? What makes anything a scale? It has to do with the distance between the notes. So, if it's a major scale, you have certain distances between each scale degree. This is 1, this is 2, and that's a whole step, or 2 half notes. So that's another whole step, and that's a half step coming up. So this is what makes a set of notes into a scale or a mode of different kinds. So the minor scales have different intervals, different distances between the notes than the major scales. So I'll just, starting on page 23 or whichever edition you have, this is playing the A minor scale harmonic form. Of course, you could practice that much slower, and you can also work on including dynamics with that. So let's do it again slower and with some dynamics. So we're gonna start small, get big, and get small again. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Now let's look at the chords in the key of A minor. That E7 is tough. You do not need to keep your 4th finger down when you switch to catch the other notes. There may be a time when you will need to do that, but at this point, don't worry about it. Yes, and then this sort of takes you through the E7 chord. Okay, so just make sure your fingers are only touching one string at a time. To do this, first finger on the 1st fret of the 3rd string, ring finger on the 3rd fret of the 2nd string, and middle finger on the 2nd fret of the 1st string. Let's go on to the next example. This is sometimes you have E instead of E7. Did you notice in the middle there I kind of touched the string too soon and missed some of the sound that I could have kept? Here, I'll play it once to show you how you don't want to play it. Of course, sometimes you want to do that when you're doing it on purpose, but when you practice, you want to do it both ways. really do the thing that's harder. Spend more time on the thing that's harder, which I think is to keep your fingers off the strings as much as possible. In the last episode I talked about how I plant my fingers, but I also try to keep them off the head when I can. And in a time like this, it's definitely one of those times. If I'm, especially if I'm playing accompaniment, I don't need to play as loud. Let's do the next study, the last line on the page. Okay, now we can turn to the next page, which in the old edition is to page 24. And we're introducing what's called a snap, or when I first encountered it playing guitar or bluegrass banjo, it's called a pull-off. So you know, the other thing we're encountering here is the thumb glide, where you go from one string to the usually fourth string to the third string. When I do this, the fourth string, I go straight from the fourth string to the third. So I rest, I call it a rest stroke. This I learned from other instrument playing. The thumb goes through the fourth string and rests on the third string. Oh, sorry. Just rest there. This is something to practice to begin with. Just resting. Let's see if I can show you what I mean. So normally you'd kind of get ready for another, or right, but here we're gonna just rest, and then just doing this. This is something you want to get really comfortable with. And then let's practice the snap on its own as well. So that's going to go like this. So what happens is you've struck a note and then you just kind of pull it off. You have to experiment with this to figure out the right angle and pressure. So you don't want to go too hard, right? That's going to not sound pleasant. And that's too light. It doesn't make enough sound. So spend some time experimenting with that. And then once you can do both of these things, and then we can put it together into this preparatory exercise. That's how that should sound. Now, how are we doing on time? Yep, I'm going to call this the end of the episode, and in the next episode, we're going to play Pajama Dance.